The last time Pretorius shouted at somebody in the professional sense was probably 35 years ago. He's just written a leadership book, and not many South African business leaders write leadership books, but it makes an interesting read when it comes to being in the driving seat. You worked at McCarthy, you worked in the motor industry for a long time, you then were bought out by Bidvest, and you've got a long experience in corporate history. And Maria Ramos, on whose board you sit, heard me talking to you on the radio once when you spoke about the fact that your last time you shouted at somebody in a work context was 35 years ago. Her comment was, Brunt and I are very different people. I suppose leadership styles are different, aren't they?
Yes, no, absolutely, Bruce. And situations are different, and leaders need to be authentic. But obviously, leadership behavior has to be anchored in the right principles and values. And I can vouch for Maria. She's definitely in that category.
But people have got different styles of achieving the same goals. Does Steve Jobs' draconian, severely top-down as a style of leadership, was it wrong?
Well, should one look at his results, one cannot criticize him. So leadership, in my view, is all about influence, and leaders use different mechanisms to influence. But I would say if you take a person like Steve Jobs, he earned the respect and the trust and the influence that he enjoyed. But I say again, one has to be authentic, and I can never behave like he did, although I admire him for his achievements.
Fear as a leadership mechanism, is it ever appropriate?
I don't think so, because it doesn't produce real commitment. It doesn't result in a sense of belonging. You get reluctant compliance. People will try and please because they fear and they don't want to lose their jobs, but it's unlikely that they will volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their enthusiasm. And should a leader get to the point where people volunteer of themselves, then leadership magic is produced.
Did you achieve that, do you think?
I don't want to be so bold as to say it, but leaders know, and sometimes during my career I was privileged. I got that vibe that there was a great team spirit and a high level of commitment and absolute engagement, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And the inevitable consequence was the team produced sparkling results, because somehow I managed to engage not only their minds, but also their hearts. And in my opinion, that the heart is the fountain of leadership. So
you talk about the concept of servant leadership. Explain it to me.
I believe that before you can ask for a hand, you must touch a heart. And the best way to touch a heart is to be prepared to serve one's people. And I'm talking about serving them in terms of showing them respect, involving them, consulting with them, encouraging them, working with them, coaching them, giving them acknowledgement. But the essence of servant leadership is you want to take your relationship with your team member to a different level, and servant leadership does achieve that objective, provided it's sincere.
If it's so effective, why don't more people use it? Because it is very rare.
Because it's much easier, perhaps, just to be a tough boss and to use positional power and authority, and to a degree to practice a transactional approach of saying, you know, I've got the wisdom and the knowledge, and I instruct and I do a transaction with you. Provided you comply, I'll pay you. So autocratic leadership is the easy way out. Servant leadership is quite tough, because you have to engage at the personal level, and you don't fall back on authority or positional power.
why most people probably wouldn't go the servant leadership route is because they feel it would challenge their own authority. Because if somebody took advantage of what they perceive to be somebody's good nature in this process, because it's easy to come across as being the nice guy who's a pushover in that process. How do you prevent that?
Yeah, through your example, because you can be kind, but there's no need to be weak. You can be humble, but not timid. You can be firm, but fair. So should your people perceive you to be committed to the vision and the value, should you lead by setting an impeccable example, should you lead, provide direction and have the courage to go first, then there's no need to throw your weight around, to be self-important and to intimidate your people. No need whatsoever.
Were you born with it, or did you learn it?
I had a mother who epitomized servant leadership, and she was definitely my role model, and so my personality is very similar to hers, and I saw how she brought up 4 boys without ever raising her voice.
That's impossible. I don't believe you for a moment. Have you managed to pass that on to your children?
They all have their own personalities, but they need to remain authentic and true to themselves. But I believe all 3 of them have a good grasp of what the essence of servant leadership is all about.
Pretorius, not only a non-executive director of several companies, but also the author of a book, In the Driving Seat. Quite a unique South African leadership